Hello, everybody. It is the morning after Oklahoma State. I'm Schuyler Callihan here on Between the Ears. West Virginia falling to Oklahoma State 48-34. And as we talked about last night on the post-game show, it was a game West Virginia more than had a chance in. They should have really probably won the game. If you think about it, they had a 4-point lead. They had got to stop. Looked like they were about to take some more time off the clock, potentially go up 2 scores, or had at least had the opportunity to do that with the ball getting back in their hands. And then all of a sudden, Andrew Wilson Lamp runs into and just absolutely trucks Preston Fox on a punt return. Looked like the Oklahoma State um, guy would probably pushed him a little bit, but I mean, it's definitely not a penalty. It just you gave him a little shove, and it seemed like Wilson Lamp just couldn't stop himself in time and ended up in what turned out to be a catastrophe for West Virginia. So instead of having the ball up four, taking some time off and maybe going up 2 scores, Oklahoma State scores. West Virginia gets to about midfield. They fail on 4th and 2 on Garrett Green's bad decision to keep the football instead of hand it off. And then boom, Ollie Gordon goes the other way. And now it's all of a sudden a 2-score Oklahoma State game. So here West Virginia sits 4-3 on the season, 2-2 in Big 12 play. And once again, it feels like Neal Brown is. I wouldn't say he's quite on the hot seat just yet, but it's starting to swing back in that direction. I mean, you can't lose games that you should win. What Eugene said last night. Last week, that's a very winnable game against Houston. Very, very winnable. You controlled the first quarter of that game, first quarter and some change, and then you go into the half trailing. How? I don't know. It all comes down to discipline. Even after that touchdown, I know we're not really trying to talk about that game as much. It still goes back to discipline. Garrett Green taking his helmet off. Guys on defense on the Hail Mary play didn't know what they were doing. They didn't get back in time. Last night, it's just flat out discipline again. Ben Cutter hitting a guy late out of bounds. That's 15 yards on top of a 15-yard face mask. You just give him 30 free yards down the field. And all of a sudden, they're in plus territory. And it goes again to some false starts. Obviously, the muff punt. There's just a lot of things that have happened in these last 2 weeks that have made you said, well, this is your typical Neal Brown coach team. Those games that they won against TCU and Texas Tech, where we kept saying over and over and over again that these are typically the types of games they would find a way to lose. Well, guess what? Now they're losing them. So I guess the law of averages is playing out a little bit, but there's 5 games left here on the schedule, and this isn't the most daunting schedule by any means. It's a very, very favorable schedule, but as we've seen the last 2 weeks, West Virginia was projected to win both games and have dropped both games. And the feeling that I get from the fan base is just, look, it is way past time to put together a product on the field that is worth something, that is making strides. It's a fatigued fan base. They want a winner. And last night I did a little digging. There were at least 5 coaches that were hired to Power 5 jobs the same year as Neal Brown, including Neal. There may be a couple of others that may have been fired already, but there's 5 coaches today that are still with that program that were hired in 2019. Ryan Day, you can't even make a comparison there. He's 48-6. He's got some of the best talent in the country every single year. Mack Brown at North Carolina, 36-23. And let's be real, North Carolina is not a football program. They're a notorious football program. They're not a football school. Yet Mack Brown has just brought a whole lot of success to that program, and they're a top 10, top 15 team right now. Now, they're going to fall because they're lost to Virginia, but still, they are a competitive team that puts together a chance to get to the conference title game just about every year. Chris Klieman at Kansas State. He's now 35-22. We all know the success that he's had at K-State. Again, same conference as Neal Brown, came in the same time as Neal Brown, has had a similar situation recruiting wise as Neal Brown, because let's be real here too. There's not 5-star talent just sitting in his backyard in Manhattan, Kansas, just like there's not here in West Virginia. But somehow he's 13 games over the Mendoza line. Mike Locksley at Maryland, 25-25. And then Neal Brown at 26-28. So to me, if you just take a look at those 5 programs and the history and the success that all 5 of those programs have had, West Virginia should be right behind, or Neal Brown should be right behind Ryan Day at Ohio State. You can't tell me that West Virginia doesn't have more success and more history than North Carolina, Kansas State, and Maryland. And you can at least put up somewhat similar numbers to those types of coaches that came in the same years as you. I don't really understand it. What are the excuses? And as I mentioned last night too, he's been here 5 years and they've never been ranked. That doesn't happen around here. It might be okay in some other places, but it's not okay in West Virginia. This is a proud program that consistently wins. And if you look at the Big 12 as a whole, once Oklahoma and Texas leave, West Virginia is the winningest program in the Big 12 ever. They have the most success. They have the most wins. I think win percentage are like third. They're one of that, no question, one of the best programs in the Big 12, especially once Oklahoma and Texas leave. So you should be towards the top. Is Neal Brown going to have this team at the top by next year? That's a question for Ren Baker. The biggest question I have, and again, Garrett Green, he played his tail off. He played really well for what he could do. But he was 15 to 30. I mean, this kid lives in the 50 to 53, 54% completion percentage range almost every game. Heck of a runner. But I think it would really benefit him and Nico and Sean Boyle and any other quarterback that's going to come through West Virginia under Neal Brown to have an actual quarterbacks coach that has had experience coaching at the Power 5 level. Sean Reagan has been bouncing back and forth. When he first came to West Virginia with Neal, he was the quarterbacks coach. Didn't have much success, clearly. He goes to tight ends coach last year. When Graham Harrell comes in, now he's back at quarterbacks. So the guy that was coaching tight ends last year is now your quarterbacks coach. Your head coach is calling the plays. That can't be a successful recipe. If you're going to compete in the Big 12, you need to have a quarterbacks coach that has coached at Power 5 level before or has played in it before and knows how to teach it. And I'm not trying to dog on Sean Reagan. I'm sure he's a great coach, but as a quarterback, I want a guy that has so much success and has so much history coaching the position. And West Virginia has not had that since Neal came here in 2019. And is it a coincidence that the quarterback play hasn't been great since 2019? I think not. So, and that's not the only spot on the coaching staff either. If Neal does happen to return in 24, I think he has to make some adjustments. Has to. That entire staff that he brought with him from Troy, there's got to be some reevaluations there. If you look at across the country, there's guys that have Power 5 experience everywhere on those staffs. And if they don't, they come from really highly respected Division IIs or FCS or whatever the case may be. These guys just won a couple games at Troy and not much else outside of that. So I think there needs to be more experience on this staff, particularly at the P5 level. But Ren Baker's got a decision first on Neal, and then Neal's got a decision secondly on his staff. We're still 5 games away from really seeing what direction this goes in. But the way things have trended the last 2 weeks, it doesn't look good. You got a tough game next week in the bounce house at UCF. And if you lose that one, you come back home 4-4 after a 4-1 start to the year. So we'll see what happens. That'll do it for me today here on the morning after, here on Between the Ears. You can follow us on Twitter at Mountaineers Now. Hit that subscribe button at Mountaineers Now as well. And we'll be back here in a couple of days to break down West Virginia and UCF and the keys to the game. Take care.